Hello there, and welcome back to Tatooine Tableflip. I'm Jimmie, and today I'll be looking at Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and its sequel, Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures. I'm going to grab a cup of tea and then we'll get to it. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, originally released back in 1981 by Sleuth Productions, was a huge hit and won the Spiel des Jahres in 1985. Over the years, it's seen numerous reprintings leading to the version we'll be checking out today from Istari Games. The sequel, Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures from Space Cowboy Games, offers a unique 4-adventure campaign alongside its 6 other cases. I came to the Sherlock Holmes stories late in life when I was gifted a lovely 2-book hardcover set collecting all of the Arthur Conan Doyle Holmes stories. Until then, I'd only had really just a passing acquaintance with the characters presented through other media. When I was growing up, I didn't have any interest at all in Sherlock Holmes or that kind of story. I was a sci-fi kid. I sat on those books for years before I finally got around to reading them. And even then, only out of a strange sense of duty, as if they were something I had to read before I died, just to say that I'd read them. Kind of like, Moby Dick or War and Peace. Nah, I'm not gonna read War and Peace. When I finally did get around to reading them, something strange happened. I felt nothing. I wasn't an instant convert or anything, I just simply enjoyed them for what they are. Heck, Holmes is barely in even one of the stories that has become the most famous with the most adaptations. See, I have a hard time finding the thrill in the stories, and I think it's just maybe because I'm too jaded at this point in my life. But I found myself jealous of people who might have come to the stories as a kid, especially a kid living in a world less sophisticated than the one we do now, and how wonderful that must have been to just be transported to that world. So when I first heard of this game, I was so mad about the whole thing that I just completely ignored it. Hearing rumors later about how it had been walked back out of a foreign language translation, causing it to be rife with spelling and grammar errors, then completely turned me off to ever playing the game. Later, I kind of changed my mind and decided to give it a try. And when I did, I gave the first case, the Munitions Magnate, a go. And as the story went on, I found myself utterly thrilled by the story and the fact that I was doing really well and having fun playing a deduction game, something I am not good at all. These are the case books for each set, Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper and the West End Adventures. And they operate in much the same fashion as the old Choose Your Own Adventure books that were popular back in the 80s and 90s, in that you read a section of the book, the lead, and that feeds you information that fleshes out the story as you go. After reading that particular bit, you might want to visit another location, or you might want to talk to another person, and so you reference the directory included in the game, and that will send you to the next part of the book that you read, fleshing out the story even more. It's fantastic, the depth that these really get into. Unfortunately, there are some spelling and grammar errors, as I mentioned before, and I even found a lead in the first one that didn't match the directory at all, so it sort of stonewalled my investigation for a little bit. I managed to get around it, so I was still able to finish the game, but I was really kind of shocked at the lack of editing in that first case, and I'm really concerned that maybe the other ones in this first set might suffer the same problems. One of the editors for Jack the Ripper and the West End games contacted me on Board Game Geek and assured me that they were very diligent about trying to catch all the spelling and grammar errors in this set. So this one I'm not so concerned with. The depth of this game, even just the first case, is amazing. I was totally and completely pulled into the story and transported into this world. And I found that there's actually more than one path to reach the conclusion. However, this does not lend replayability to the game. Once you're through it, you're through it. If you know the end, you know the end. That's all there is to it. There are not multiple endings to these cases. So you effectively, in this set, have 10 playthroughs and 10 playthroughs here. However, in Jack the Ripper, 4 of these cases are linked into a campaign. I cannot wait to dig into that one. Jack the Ripper is one of my favorite subjects in history, and I'm really interested to see how it's treated here because, as anyone who's familiar with the Ripper stories know, none of those cases were actually solved. So I'm really, really interested to see how Sherlock Holmes handles those cases. This is one of the neatest components in the game. Holy cats, was this a good idea. These are daily newspapers included, one for each of the case files, and both sets have them. This has easily become, I think, my favorite gaming component in any game I own. And it's because they're not, at least as far as I've played, directly referenced in anything. It's just there. They just wrote these daily newspapers and chucked them into the box. It feels like an afterthought, but I tell you what, I got to a point where I was stonewalled in my game, and I was kind of worried that I was just going to have to give up because I couldn't progress. I couldn't figure out what my next move was. So I sat back, and as I'm completely frustrated by this maddening game and how poorly I was doing trying to deduce what had happened, I decided to read the newspaper. Seriously, I just sat back and started reading this paper, and most of it's baloney, but I ran across a bit of information in there that turned over something. And once it did, I realized what my next move was, and it was weirdly as clear as day. That's how important this was, but also not important, because these offer myriad paths through the story, as I mentioned before. But this did it for me. Reading the paper, sitting back, taking it easy for a minute, really did it for me. And then I was able to go to the next lead in the book and rocket straight to the end of the game. It was fantastic. What you do at the end, once you think you've got it all figured out, is that you visit Sherlock at his apartment. And he runs through his explanation of how he figured out the case. He always scores 100 out of 100. And then what you do is you answer some questions at the back of the book. Now I found, because there's various paths and leads you can follow, there was a whole investigatory string that I completely missed. Another weird thing that happened is I realized that while I was playing, I, one, didn't necessarily care, and two, hadn't realized that I had not even been considering a motive for the murder that you're trying to solve with the first case. And so consequently, I missed a lot of the questions. I got them wrong. Now, Sherlock Holmes visits a certain amount of locations. You score by getting the correct answer for some of the questions, but you lose score by each location you visit above the amount that Sherlock has visited. And so ultimately what I scored was 65 at the end. And that was missing a boatload of the questions because it was a completely different investigation path that I hadn't considered while I was playing. But I sat back and it was ridiculously satisfying. I don't know how to impress upon you. With just a few components, one of the greatest things I love about this game is that you have the casebook, the directory, a map of London, and your newspaper to go with that particular case. And that's it. And, you know, for me, I took copious notes. I mean, this is a ridiculous amount of notes while I was going through. And my game ran about 3 hours, mainly because I was slowing down and considering things and note-taking and things like that. But it ended up being one of the most satisfying gaming experiences I've ever had. I love this game. I'm kind of kicking myself for having not gotten to it sooner. But, oh man, it's just so good. Now, while I've been talking about just one case from the first set, the second set is a standalone, but at the same time, an expansion to the game. There's 10 cases included in this one. There's 10 cases included in this one. 4 of the 10 are actually linked together. Those are the Jack the Ripper cases, and they're linked together in a campaign. Now, this is the story version, and technically is, well, not technically, it is out of print. But my understanding is that Space Cowboys, who produced the Jack the Ripper set, are reprinting this first set and cleaning up a lot of the spelling and grammar errors, and that's supposed to be out later this year. I can't wait. I'm probably going to replace my story set with it because the game is just that good. I would love to have a cleaned up version of this game. The new box style, this is the regular coffin box, I think it's called, where the top comes off. This is actually, let's see if I can get it to open, a slip tray. If you've seen my unboxing of this set, then you've seen this already, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes below. So if you haven't seen it, please go over and have a look. I love this because with the minimal amount of components, and they're all about the same size of the box, you don't need an insert. Everything fits back in here really solidly, and you can put the game up on your bookshelf as if it were a books. And I recently picked up the Watson and Holmes game, and the box is the same style, and I'm assuming when they reprint this, it'll be the same style as well. They'll look really nice together, sitting up on the shelf. Instead of laying flat, you can set them up on their end, or, well, you know, whatever. One last little thing is, you'll see the edge of the tray here is blank. If you take the tray out and turn it around, there's a nice little surprise on the other side. It's not a big deal, but I just thought it was kind of a neat little thing that was pointed out to me by somebody who worked on the game. So it's, you know, when you get it, you can pop that open and have a look at this tray. It's kind of cool. They did the same thing with the Watson and Holmes game. Let's see, the components are all really, actually pretty high quality. I was quite surprised. The newspapers feel like newspaper. All of the books are printed on glossy paper. They're fairly sturdy. I really don't see a problem. And considering that you probably play each case only once, they'll hold up really well. I really love that this game falls in between an RPG and a proper board game. And the rule set is such that it's super easy for you and your friends to learn how to play and just get rolling on your first case. I mean, seriously, just a few minutes out of the box and you'll be immersed completely in the world of Sherlock Holmes. I really, really loved this game. Using a minimal amount of components, the game just has a fantastic amount of depth and just reels you right in. Holy cow, was it an amazing experience. I can't wait to get to the rest of the cases in both of these sets. Again, the first set is plagued with spelling and grammar errors, and in my case, a completely different entry to what I was directed to from the London directory. But the Ripper set has supposedly taken care of all of those problems. They don't have that issue, and the reprint is supposedly going to be completely cleaned up as well. Just for the huge amount of satisfaction I gained from playing a deduction game, something I am completely lousy at, these both have earned their spots on my game shelf. Hey, if you guys like the show, why don't you give me a thumbs up down there and subscribe to my channel. That way you get all the new episodes and unboxings and whatnot as they come out. You can also find us online at boardgamerblues.com, where we have some other text reviews and other little bits of junk up there on occasion. And you can find us at Facebook and Twitter at @BoardGamerBlues. Shoot me a message either at Twitter or at an email address. It's Jimmie@boardgamerblues.com. That's JIMMIE @boardgamerblues.com. And tell me what you like. Tell me what you'd like to see on the show. Suggest games for review or unboxing. Suggest format changes. I mean, if I'm boring you guys, tell me that too. Or, hey, just send me a message just to say hi. I'd love to hear from you guys. That's it for me this time. If I'm not trounding around the streets of London in search of Jack the Ripper, I'll see you guys next time at Tatooine Tableflip. Thanks for watching. Bye.